Today on How It's Made. Dinnerware. That's dishes and plates, not jacket and tie. Air brake tanks. That's stopping systems, not military vehicles. Frosted cereal. That's coated in sugar, not covered in ice. And fossils. Old and dead. What more can we say? Well, quite a lot actually, but first. Restaurant dinnerware brings a lot to the table. It's known for rugged good looks. It also holds up to heavy use and repeated cleaning in commercial dishwashers. And its design can reflect the restaurant's theme. And if you know what this theme might be, please let me know. People appreciate the effort that goes into producing a fine meal, but they may not give much thought for what it takes to make the actual plate the food is served on. Making ceramic dinnerware that's restaurant quality is an intensive process that starts with a master die made of gypsum. This worker then makes a production version of the master. To do this, he pulls gypsum into a wire mesh frame above the master. There's tubing attached to the mesh frame. Air is pumped through it, causing the water in the gypsum to bubble out and evaporate. It dries and solidifies into a mirror image of the master, in this case, a platter shape. The tubing inside this production die will be used later to gently blow off the platter when formed, releasing it from the die. Another worker adds the ceramic ingredients to water. They include a plasticizer, silica sand, and different clays and minerals, like aluminium oxide. Once the clay mix has been thoroughly blended, they drain it onto a vibrating sieve to screen out large chunks and other impurities. The clay-based liquid flows through a screen into a holding tank. They pump it through this filter press. It compresses fabric-covered plastic plates to squeeze out moisture, turning the clay liquid into putty-like slabs. Ready for shaping, a worker breaks up the slabs and feeds the pieces to a pug mill. The mill shapes the clay into a long cylinder, and in the process, it sucks out air, so the dinnerware will be less prone to cracking. He slices the clay cylinder into small discs using a wire cutter. Each of these clay discs will be shaped into one plate. They place discs onto molds on a revolving platform. The mold spins up to a metal tool, which presses the clay into the shape of the mold below. The tool also forms the back of the plate. A nozzle lubricates the metal tool between pressings. A cutter at the side trims the rims of the plates as they're formed. Unlike the platter die, these molds don't have tubing inside to blow the plates off. Instead, the heat from the dryer separates them from the molds. Once out of the molds, the plates spin on pedestals, past a sponge, which then smooths the edges. For coffee mugs, the pug mill presses out a narrower cylinder, and a knife at the exit point slices it into precise discs. The discs fall into coffee mug molds, and a tool spins the clay up against the walls of the mold to shape it into mugs. A blade at the top trims the excess from the lip. They pass under a long sponge to smooth the rims. And now for the handles. They make them in two-part molds and dry them under an infrared light. The handles must have precisely the same moisture content as the mugs, at around 16%. A worker dips the ends of each handle in a clay and glue mixture and presses it to the mug. The mugs go into a dryer and the moisture content drops further to 4%. Next, they douse the mugs with glaze inside and out and bake them in a super hot kiln. This will make the mugs chip resistant and will strengthen the bond between the handle and the mug. They paint the dinnerware by hand using a ceramic stain. This stain will allow it to face repeated rigorous cleaning in restaurant dishwashers. For a different look, they apply labels to some dinnerware. This artwork has been produced using the same hard-wearing ceramic stain. The plates then head into the oven, and the heat fuses the decorative touches to them. From a liquid clay to tableware you could eat your dinner off, the process has taken about 24 hours. Mind you, I'm not sure that I want to hang around for the washing up. Air brake tanks are part of powerful brake systems used on large vehicles such as lorries and buses. When the driver depresses the brake pedal, the tanks release compressed air to activate the brakes, stopping the wheels. It's not exactly breaking news, but try stopping me from telling you how they're made. The energy used to stop a big vehicle comes from air. It's compressed and stored in the brake tanks, so there's always a ready supply. They make air brake tanks from industrial-grade steel. A press forces the steel around a dome form and shears the edges to produce the tank's end caps. It also punches a hole in each end cap for a fitting. The cap's dome shape is critical, allowing it to withstand the air pressure inside the tank. The tank caps now go under sprayers that wash away residual oil from the pressing process. More steel sheeting goes into another press. It's twice as thick as the steel used to make the end caps. This press is punching and forming brackets for attaching the air tank to the trailer undercarriage. It takes 6 punches to shape the flat sheet of steel into the curved brackets. Here's an example of the 6 formative stages. Machinery now flattens and cuts bigger sheets of steel for the tank body. Clamps grip the sheet along the edges and position it under another punch press. It perforates the steel where fittings are to be installed and also stamps the company name and other manufacturing information onto it. They feed the sheet to a roller that curls it into the tank shell. The worker clamps it into a fixture. A carriage moves a welding torch overhead to join the ends and create an airtight seam. The weld is then inspected. Fittings are welded into the holes that were punched in earlier. 2 of the fittings are for attaching valves that control the flow of compressed air. The 3rd fitting will be used to connect a line for draining water formed during air compression. A metalworker reinforces the fittings with large collars that help the connections withstand any bumps in the road. He places the brackets and end caps in an automatic welder. It fuses the bracket to the cap, one for each of the air tank's end caps. With both end caps now installed on the cylindrical shell, it's time to seal the air tank. The tank turns on a welding lathe as automated welders bond the caps to the shell. The air tank structure is now basically complete. It's time to put it to the test. After plugging the open fittings, they pump highly compressed air into the tank, more than it would usually handle. If it can take all the pressure, it's structurally sound. They bring the pressure down slightly and check for leaks. Bubbles in the water around it would indicate air is seeping out. After cleaning, the airtight tank heads into a powder coating station. Sprayers apply the powdered resin coating. The particles are positively charged and the tanks are negatively charged for an instant attraction. The black powder clings to the tanks as they now go through a gas-fired oven. The heat melts and bonds the coating to the surface of the air brake tanks, forming a tough skin that's rust-resistant. After the tanks cool, a worker inserts a long, thin paint gun through one of the fittings to spray a rust-proof coating on the inside. He then inserts plugs into all the fittings to protect the threads from damage until they're ready to make all the necessary connections. It's taken about 5 hours to produce these tanks, and now it's time to put the brakes on. Coming up, we're going to take a very long trip down memory lane. We'll be taking a look at fossils. And look, I know this sounds corny, but that's exactly what it is. We take a trip to a flaky factory to see how frosted cereal is made. Join us after the break. Frosted cereal originated in America in the 1950s, and today you'll find versions of it on breakfast tables around the world. It's one of the first things some people reach for in the morning. This particular blend of frosted cereal is a combination of wheat flakes, corn flakes, and granola clusters. Half the flakes are frosted and half aren't. And there's honey, rolled oats, and rice in the granola. To make the cornflakes, they start with kernels of corn. They measure out a specific amount and release it into an industrial version of a pressure cooker. The operator locks the lid and the system pipes water and flavourings directly into the cooker. It rotates for an even distribution of heat and an even cooking of the grains. After about 3 hours, the kernels have absorbed moisture and softened. As the corn flows out of the cooker, a screw conveyor system moves it towards a dryer. They cook a measured amount of whole wheat kernels in water and flavourings. They only need an hour in the rotating pressure cooker. Like the corn, the whole wheat absorbs a significant amount of water during cooking. The kernels are about 30% moisture when they exit the cooker. They now merge with the corn en route to the dryer. The drying time will bring the moisture content down to about 19%, making the kernels the right consistency to be transformed into flakes. The grains now flow into a mill. The mill has 2 big heavy rollers, similar to the kind used to level tarmac. The kernels fall between these rollers, and they exert tons of pressure to flatten each individual kernel into a flake. In the process, the wheat flakes turn whiter and the corn turn more yellow. At this point, the flakes are still quite soft and not at all tasty. A trip through a long toaster oven will give it that crisp cereal consistency. It's a high-temperature toasting and reduces the moisture content from 19% to just 3%. Here, you can see the flakes before toasting and after. The toasting not only makes the corn and wheat flakes crispy, it also enhances the colour and flavour. A ride on a conveyor cools them down. Along the way, they split into 2 different streams. One stream of the mixed flakes travels towards the sugar coating station. The other heads into a flavouring drum. The drum revolves to gently toss the cereal as a sprayer applies a granola kind of flavouring. The other stream of wheat and cornflakes enters the sugar coating drum. A sprayer disperses a sugar and water mixture as the drum tosses the flakes. Then they travel through a dryer, and this cures the frosting to the flakes. The frosted and the flavoured flakes now flow onto the same conveyor. It bounces the flakes around to blend them together. To boost the nutrition content, they add honey-flavoured granola. The granola clusters flow onto a conveyor. They'll merge with the frosted and flavoured flakes. This feeder pipe showers granola onto the flakes. This frosted cereal is now ready for supermarket shelves. Machinery dispenses specific amounts into a plastic sleeve, which is heat-sealed, then severed at both ends. Mechanical arms then pick up boxes, open them, and place them on a conveyor. Push rods guide the bags of cereal into the boxes. The best before date and other information have been printed on the outside. Nozzles apply glue to the ends, and the box is brushed by a side barrier that closes them. Producing and packaging this frosted cereal blend has taken about 5 hours. Now people can wake up to their first meal of the day knowing how it's made. Cheers from the Breakfast Brigade. Colonel of Corn, we salute you. A fossil is a remnant of prehistoric life embedded in rock. Either the actual remains of an animal or plant, or an impression left by decayed remains. Most fossils are millions of years old, and remind us that humans have been around for only a small part of the Earth's existence. Fossils are manufactured by nature, but collected and preserved by man for display in museums as well as in private collections. One of the world's richest fossil deposits is located in the US state of Wyoming. 50 million years ago, the area was a freshwater lake. But with climate changes, it gradually dried out, leaving wildlife and flora buried under layers of sediment. Over time, that sediment hardened into sheets of rock, containing fossils of those life forms. To find fossils in what were the shallower outer edges of the prehistoric lake, they drive thin blades about 1 centimetre deep to loosen and separate sheets of rock. In this part of the deposit, the fossil is often split between 2 layers of rock, which is why they call this particular dig area the Split Fish Quarry. They repeat the process, excavating several layers. They typically find fossils of smaller herring-type fish, plants, and insects. They carefully separate the large rock sheets into smaller pieces, so that it's easy to transport them from the quarry to the workshop. This sedimentary rock is oil shale, a substitute for conventional crude oil, scratch the surface and it smells. It'll also burn. However, there's not enough actual oil in this deposit to make extraction viable. In the company's second quarry, they blow away surface debris to make it easier to spot fossils. Recovery is more difficult here because this part of the deposit was the deep centre of the prehistoric lake and wildlife was buried under far more sediment. It takes a highly trained eye to see the slight shadow which a fossil's ridges cast on the ground. After outlining their find, they use a diamond blade saw to cut around it. They remove the surrounding rock to be able to slide their thin blades underneath. Then gently extract their treasure. This is a tricky procedure. One wrong move and the fossil shatters. In the workshop, under 5 times magnification and using a variety of sharpened tools, they carefully scrape away the surface until the dark colour of the fossil shows through. To fully reveal a fossil this size takes 30 to 40 hours of tedious and meticulous work. As for the rock sheets from the split quarry, they saw the fossils apart, neatly framing each one within a rectangle. Layers flake off more easily from split quarry rock than from the harder rock of the other quarry. Once a fossil is completely exposed, they seal and protect the surface with a light coat of spray-on acrylic. When exposing a fossil, it's critical to keep sharpening the tools on a diamond file. How many layers of rock have to be scratched off varies. A fossil can be sitting right on the surface, or be buried a centimetre or 2 beneath it. This freshwater stingray, a rare find, is about as intricate as a fossil gets. This took more than a month to prepare. The detail of this large palm leaf fossil is astounding. You can actually see insect bites. And as this leaf fossilized on that prehistoric lake bed, so did the fish swimming around it. It produces an incredible snapshot of life from 50 million years ago, now firmly set in stone.